Turn it up. You're listening to Live and Loud with the Lord. Turn it up. You're listening to Live and Loud with the Lord. Nelson, that is.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, it is yours truly, the Lord Nelson, that is. And this is Live and Loud with the Lord. And ladies and gentlemen, we have one of the best doing it. Let's keep it real and stay true to the game.
All right.
He's going to be humble, but he's one of the best doing it. There's no doubt about it. And we have to understand that his name, his podcast name, is one of the best that there is. It's one of the best that there is. I mean, that play on words is beautiful. I mean, hey, thanks to your family name. It's all love, man. It's a beautiful thing. It most definitely is. But ladies and gentlemen, we have a musician. We have one of the best podcasters, and we'll get into all of that stuff here coming up. Mr. Joshua Toomey, ladies and gentlemen. And I always
what is up, man?
Clap the guest up, man.
Oh,
clap you up.
I'm gonna clap you up too, man. I'm a big fan.
It's all about you, most definitely, man. So starting off, I ask every guest, Josh, where are you from?
I am from. I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
I currently live right outside Louisville in the Indiana side.
Okay.
In the wonderfully named Floyd's Knobs, Indiana, which no one ever believes that's a real town, but that's my town. We bought a house here about a year or so ago. But yeah, man, I grew up in a small town in Kentucky, and then we moved to Nashville in the late '90s, or I'm sorry, in the early '90s, and like 90, 91, and then but all of my formative years were in Nashville.
Okay, so I know Nashville is a music town. So what is it great other than Nashville being a music town to you? What's great about Nashville?
I mean, just growing up there, I just really, I really liked, the school system I was in. I liked my friends that I had. I liked, when I got into music, the one thing that I always said was, we played metal, we played new metal.
Mm-hmm.
This is when I started doing bands, it was roughly 95-ish, 96. Okay. So the one thing that we always had was there were so many studios down there ran by country people, but they didn't necessarily want to record country all the time. So every once in a while they'd be like, man, we need a metal band in here. And so you could sneak in to like Faith Hill's studio, at night when the engineers weren't running the ship and stuff.
Right.
So yeah. And that was, pre Tennessee Titans getting there. That was, so, I mean, I've seen that town blow up, since we got there. It was a little small sleepy town that you didn't go downtown at all. Like there was like that whole Broadway where they show like on TV now where all the bars are and all the country stars have bars. Like back in the 90s, that was like porno shops. I mean, it was like Times Square, like before they cleaned it up.
Really?
And yeah, I mean, there was a buddy of mine in high school met Ron Jeremy down at one of those porn stores. Like he was doing an in-store signing. So, and now it's all honky tonks and and whatever flavor of the month country star themed bars and stuff. So it's a crazy town, man.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, my brother-in-law lived there for a while. I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and I flew out there and went and watched the game. The Steelers lost, but I still had a good time razzing all the other people and stuff like that. I had a really great time out there. It was a great time. So you are a musician and play bass. So tell me about the bands you have played in and which one complimented your bass playing the most.
Well, growing up, I mean, really right out of high school, I joined a band and we were called 12 Volt Negative Earth. I joined my senior year of high school. They were all a couple of years older than me, and they almost didn't let me in the band because I was still in high school.
Right.
And I was just like, I need to be in this band. I had heard their demo. I was like, I met the guys, like the singer was like the coolest looking dude I'd ever seen. and I started hanging out at their practices, and one day their bass player just didn't show up. And And I heard them go like, what are we going to do? And, I was 16, 17 at the time. And, I raised my hand and I'm like, actually, I play bass, and so like, they said, well, go home, learn the songs and come back and you can audition or whatever. And, I think I might've been the only one that auditioned. I mean, it was a high school band, but at the same time, or young local band, but they were already playing shows, at the local, the local venues around town and stuff. And, I was in that band for about 6 years. And I mean, that obviously that was like my baby at the time. I mean, we were doing little demos for Roadrunner and things like that, just kind of peeking into the industry. Oh, any big band that came through town, we opened for, it got to a point where we were playing pretty big shows around town, 1,000 cap venues, 328 Performance Hall. That was one of my favorite places to go see shows growing up, and then to be able to headline it and almost sell it out was beyond. I'm sure you've kind of felt that too, where you go to a venue and then all of a sudden you're on that stage.
Yes.
But through all of those bands, or through all that time, I was kind of the business behind the band. We would book tours and shows and meeting other bands, and that was late 90s, early 2000s. So I mean, that was very primitive internet.
Right.
I used AOL Instant Messenger to book our first tour. I would go to, we made friends with the guy at Kinko's, which is what you're supposed to do. Right. And so I would go there, the third shift guy, still a great friend to this day, actually. I would go down there, and Pat Richardson, shout out. I would go down there and he would basically give me these, Kinko's cards, and I could get on the AOL at the time. And I would put in like city and corn or whatever, and it would basically just give you a random amount of people, and you would just message them and say, hey, do you know the cool local band in your town? Do you know the cool venue? And I booked an entire 2-week tour doing that. I was just like, if I needed a show in Pittsburgh or wherever, you would narrow it down by talking like that. I mean, it was, but it's funny how many of those people to this day are still somewhat in the music business. I was listening to an interview with Brent from Shinedown the other day. That was one of the dudes in that, like Shinedown and Five Finger Death Punch and Story of the Year. All of those guys were, that are still kicking in the industry, where we were all local artists at one time together. It was pretty crazy. But to answer your question, Primer, who I ended up joining after 12 Volt Negative Earth, Bobby Burns is a bass player at heart, went on to play, bass in Soulfly for a long time. Right. So he writes those songs kind of from a bass player perspective. And so, I mean, it's basically like, one big showcase for the bass player. So I think as a bass player, I really enjoy Primer. 12 Volt was my baby growing up.
Okay. Yeah. So you went into Primer 55. Cool. So Primer 55, the band has had a lot of amazing musicians that have come and gone.
Yes.
So in your opinion, why is it so difficult for bands to keep the same lineup? And this goes for everything. I mean, just your opinion, your perspective.
Well, I think a lot of bands, it's really hard. Like the days of you getting into a garage with your friends in high school and you all being on the same page and we're all for one for all. We're going to make it, we're going to shed in this, warehouse for hours and hours at a time. And we're going to make it in the music business is few and far between. I mean, all of our favorite bands, if you look into them, man, they've all had like major lineup changes, or after the first album, 3 people hate touring. So you get this, that, and the other thing. So I think with Primer, I think the issue was there was really never a true local band Primer 55. Like Primer was a studio project Bobby had done with Jason, got some guys to play in the album. The album it was like right in the peak of that, everybody signing new metal stuff. And so basically he was working on a couple projects at one time and everybody kept going back to this Primer thing. And so he kind of put a band together with people he met. So those guys aren't coming into the band as like all of them on the same page. So after the first tour, he loses the drummer and the bass player. The second album, they get a new drummer, bass player. And then after that bass player left, that's when I came in. Right. And then, we broke up after that tour. And then we got back together in 2007, which is when I started playing with Frank Fonseray. He came into the fold. He was in the band at the same time. and then we did those tours and things like that. So it's, it's definitely that whole, it's show business, not show friends, I think. And,
Right.
and honestly, man, touring and stuff like that's not for everybody. I mean, right now we've talked about doing some shows here and there, but I'm like, I can't tour. I have kids. I have a good paying real job, and I've got retirement benefits coming. It's like I that like 18-year-old throwing caution to the wind guy is not there, man. I'm like, we can do as many shows as I have sick days, basically.
Right. Well, as Rich would always say, those days of jumping in the van and traveling 300, there's no more of that, especially at our age and stuff. It's just different. It's just a different time. No, cool, man. Cool. So you kind of touched on it. Do you still play in a band? And if not, do you have any desires to play in one again?
I definitely don't play in a band right now. I definitely don't have any desire to start a band.
Right.
That sounds terrifying and horrible to me. But like I said, I mean, I've talked a little bit with Bobby here and there, and we always entertain the thought of, hey, we should go do a few shows here and there type stuff.
Right. Okay. All right. So right now in your life, what brings you the greatest happiness at this very moment?
Are you talking personal life, professional life,
just about life, whatever it is, just life in general? What's good for you?
Man, I just the silly answer is probably just my kids and stuff, man. Just like seeing them do well and seeing them just being around and being good and having a good time, and that's what makes me happy now. I mean, that's honestly one of the reasons I quit touring back in like 07, 08 was I had a young kid at home, and his mom would call and I could hear him crying in the background, and she was stressed out, and I wasn't making any money to justify being on tour. So, I was just like, man, I can't do this anymore. But now my kids are older, and, dad can get away a little bit here and there.
Yeah. I guess for myself, I was a little bit older. My kids were all in high school. So all my kids have graduated from college, and it's all love. And now, like, even with me doing this, somebody wanted me to do a podcast so long ago. I mean, along with podcasting first came out, they were like, you love to run your mouth, you love to talk.
Right.
They bought me the books and everything, guy named Rodney Love. But I was just like, man, I just want to be on stage. I just want to, this is what I want to do. I said, I'm not trying to do this, man. I said, my mind's not even geared up for all that kind of thing like that. I was like, no way. And then, here I am doing it anyway, because I'm having a ball doing this, mind you. I'm having
I love it.
Ball doing it. Yes, indeed. So it's love. So I get it. But my children, yes, that was always my focus. My three children were always my focus. I went to basketball games. We were everywhere. My son and my youngest daughter, they're twins. And then I have an older daughter, but they all play basketball, and they all played college basketball. And so we would travel here and there. We were in Tennessee. We were here. We were everywhere. And so it was just, it was just a good thing. So I get you 100% about family, how important family is, and how much it makes you feel good. So I get you on that one. So the title of your podcast is one of the best ever. I know I already said that. I have to say it again because it is to me. I think it's just cool. Because I tried to go with Full Nelson. My daughter was like, Full Nelson. I said, that would be awesome. Somebody has it already. So, I was just like, do it. So you've had a lot of big names on your podcast.
Right.
6 years and over 300 episodes. I did a little digging, I did a little research. I'm getting better. And it's amazing to me. So is it the music that continues to stimulate your mental, or is it the conversations you have with your guests?
Man, I think it's definitely the conversations. It's definitely, the music's important, but the conversations are even more important. It's funny because I mean, really, aside from a week here and there, that's 6. It's almost 7. It'll be 7 years in September, and that's 7 years straight. That's not one episode a month. That's 7 years every week, sometimes 2 episodes a week.
Right.
And that was so. I mean, I think I've maybe taken off 2 weeks tops, aside from maybe like at the end of the year, not doing something between Christmas and New Year's or something. But I mean, that's a lot of interviews. That's a lot of talking to people. But I mean, it's at the same time, like this week, the episode's gonna be Max Cavalera. You know, like you know,
Max, yeah.
he's been on the podcast a few times before, but this was the first video interview, and we got to talk about, you know, he's doing the Arise and Beneath the Remains tour, so we got to focus on a specific time, and you know, I got to be fanboy. I mean, you know, and then he actually brought up, like, I guess he was looking, you know, like researching me, so he was looking at my Instagram,
right,
and talked about a photo from 1998 where I've got long dreadlocks and a Fear Factory shirt on. And I called a friend of mine after the interview, and I was like, Max brought up the photo shoot we did, and I was like, could you imagine telling that kid in that photo that one day Max Cavalera is going to talk about the way you look in that photo and stuff. So I mean, so sometimes, you know, I'll do bands that are up and coming, and you know, that got a little buzz around them,
right? And
you know, you do a few of those in a row, and you're like, kind of like, all right, cool, but then you get a Max Cavalera or someone you're a big fan of, and it just like recharges all of your juices, man, and you just keep going. But it's funny how many times I've wanted to just be like, all right, I think I'm done. And then right when I'm starting to think that, man, my phone will go off and be like, hey man, do you want to talk to, you know, Jason Newsted of Metallica? And you're like, all right, I'm back in. You know.
Yeah, let's go. I'm still, listen, you kind of answered the question that's going to come later, but I'm going to ask it again because that was good right there. That was really, really good. It was really good. Yeah. And when you say Max, I remember touring with Zoli, you know, my first tour with Stuck Mojo, Zoli from Ectomorph, of course. And then I can remember Rich, you know, asking him, and he was just like, yeah, man, Max. You know, he loved how much he loved Max and how much he really kind of adopted that style of Max. So, you know, just really, really dope. And I had a great time touring with them also. So that was love. So what about podcasting screamed at you like, you got to do me. Come and get me. Love me.
Man, I had just started a job where I could wear headphones like all day.
Okay.
But it like the first part of the day you're inside, so you can't really, but there wasn't really good internet inside. So I was like, I need something I can download, because I was listening to, you know, sports talk radio and whatnot. And I started downloading, you know, Eddie Trunk and Josta and a few of other shows. Like that was 2015 or 2014. And about 6 months, 8 months to a year into it, I was like, I could do this. Like I know enough people, and like kind of back to what I was talking about earlier. I know enough people in this industry to, if I hit up them and said, hey, I'm going to do a podcast, would you be a guest? And so it was really quick. I mean, it was honestly really, really quick. Because I'm not one to like sit there, and I couldn't read the books and do that. I'm like, if I think about it right now, I'm going to do it right now, like in 5 minutes.
Gotcha.
So I jumped on the internet, jumped on Amazon, bought like a $25 USB microphone that sounded like hell, and used our 10-year-old desktop computer, and I figured out an app on my phone that could record interviews. I mean, I was like bare bones to as it gets when I started this thing.
Gotcha.
And I mean, I just called a few of my friends, you know, and so the first 10 episodes were named people, and you know, and once a couple of those got picked up by Blabbermouth and all the other news sites, and so when I went to the publicist, I could say, hey, I've had this person, I've got news here, and just kind of built it from there. But I've always been like this. I've always been very conversational and wanting, you know, when I was in high school, like even first ever concert I went to was Cannibal Corpse in '94. And me and my friends, you know, we went, and immediately we were like, all right, there's the buses, there's the venue. So they got to walk between the buses and the venue. So we're going to plant ourselves right here all day, and we're going to meet Cannibal Corpse. And we did, you know, first band we ever saw.
Plots and schemes.
And then, you know, second band I ever saw was Pantera. Yeah. So we're like, all right, so the buses are going to be somewhere. So we drove downtown Nashville, drove around. We found a bunch of tour buses.
Right.
We parked ourselves between the hotel and the tour buses, and, you know, here comes Dimebag Darrell, you know, like that thing. And so, and the whole time, you know, you're like, all right, if you've got one question with Dimebag, what do you ask him? And if you got one question with Phil, what do you know? So you're already kind of doing that as a kid. And even throughout the band days, you know, we did a demo with Fred Corey from Cinderella producing. So I'm in the middle of doing bass tracks, and I'm like, what was the Moscow Music Peace Festival like? You know, I'm asking him questions about that stuff. And so I've kind of always been inquisitive, and then also very like loved Metal Edge magazine and Metal Maniacs and Metal Hammer and all the metal magazines as a kid. So reading interviews and things like that. So I mean, I've always wanted to do something like this. It just always seemed very, you have to go to journalism school and you have to do this and this. And then it was funny when I sat down to actually do the podcast. I'll give you a little thing on the name. I was sitting there and I was like, of all the dumb names I could use, I was like, we could use Talk Toomey or Speak to Me.
Right.
And I was like, I like the alliteration with the Talk Toomey.
Right.
And it's like a little narcissist to put your name in your podcast title. But we were, when I first joined up with Knotfest, I don't think they had said the name out loud.
Right.
So like some of the first stuff coming through, they thought I was using a nickname, like my name was Talk to Me. And I was like, actually, my name's Joshua or Josh. And the show is Talk to Me. And then a couple of days later, the main guy at Knotfest texted me and he was just like, it all hit us at the same time. and he just started laughing about how silly the name is, because I've even had friends that didn't put two and two together. They just say it, but they didn't realize it was like a turn of phrase,
Right. Well, when I saw the name, how it was, I said, and I was like, that's his name. That's his name because of how it was spelled. And I was just like, that's his name. And I was just like, man, this is so cool. I said, this is so, and being that I'm a writer, it's like, it's clever. I don't think it's silly at all or corny at all. I think it's so simple to use that. I mean, I just think it's a great thing. That's just my personal opinion about how I love it. I think it's amazing. So,
I appreciate you.
So, no, it's love. So here's the question. I'm gonna get back to what you were just talking about a little bit ago.
Okay.
Have you ever felt like you needed a break from something you do so well?
Well, yeah, I think I need a break all the time. I think the best thing that ever happened with the show was setting a day that the show comes out this day, because I would either put out all the episodes at once. If I had a couple in the bank, I would just be like, here's one Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday,
right,
and then not put out one for 3 weeks. But having kind of an obligation to every Thursday, if it's Tuesday and I don't have a guest or an interview or something, I'm scrambling and I'm making sure I get one, rather than if it was just like, well, I guess I don't have one, so I guess I won't put out an episode this week. There's a little bit of that. So the way I work, I definitely I'm glad I put a certain day the show comes out. That's the one thing I learned from podcasts was, set a day.
Right.
And make sure because people are going to be looking for it, because there's shows I listen to that come out every Tuesday. And then Tuesday, if I wake up and it's not in my podcast bank, all through the day, I'm refreshing, like, where's my show? And then I'm going to their Twitter and their Facebook and they haven't put in the updates, it kind of, people will get, they're in their routine. And if you kick them out of their routine, they're not going to like it.
I got you. Yeah. I chose the Going In podcast I was doing with my son. I'm kind of like pushing him on to where he's going to have all of that because I'm having so much fun doing the Live and Loud with the Lord, because it's about music. It's what I really, really love and I'm super passionate about. So this is where I want to be. And I said, just do whatever you want to do over there, man. And he's already, he's younger. So he's got a lot of wild stuff that's going on over there. So I was just like, man, that's all love. It really is. But yes, indeed, man, that's a beautiful thing. So I love to talk, but I equally love to listen, especially when other people have something enlightening for me. Right. So how important are these two elements in podcasting?
I mean, obviously it's good to be able to talk, but it's also like when I really like to put out the show that I want to listen to. And so a lot of times I'll be listening to someone talking to a guest and they keep either like cutting them off or not letting them finish, or you can tell they're about to go down a path that you want to learn about. And then they cut them off and start talking about something else. Like, so I really, there have been many an episode of Talk To Me where during the interview portion, it's about the artist. It's not about me. Like I'll throw out, if I ask a question and it can, I can relate to the answer, right, or they want to bring me in, that's fine, because I've got the intro and the outro to blab about. But during the interview, I try to just, get to the point with the question, because that can be a pain too when you're listening to a podcast of a guest that you want to listen to, and the host is just like given a 12-minute, asking a 12-minute question. You're like, come on, man, just get to the point. Like, just ask the question. I know where he knows. And it's funny because you don't even hear the guest sometimes like start to talk. Like, we know where you're going. Just let me start.
I got you, man. I got you. Good answer. Because see, I'm still learning, man. And just like you said, I love to talk, but I've learned. But I do like to listen because I want to know what you have to say. I really want to know what you have. If I ask the question, I want to know what you have to say. I definitely do. I definitely do. So now I'm going to be a little selfish.
All right.
What advice can you give the big guy with a little podcast that will continue to help him grow?
I mean, just really the things I was talking about earlier. I mean, just, make sure you're consistent, and, if you pick a day, and, even if it's every other Wednesday or as long as it's, we know that the Lord Nelson show coming out on this date, and to expect it and things like that. And you can do that. But I mean, hell, I don't know how I got here.
Whatever you've done is work. Is work.
I mean, it's definitely work. Like, don't get me wrong. It's a lot of, especially with bands I don't know a lot about, man, listening to the discography, reading the Wikipedia, listening to other interviews with the people, trying to just, I try to latch on to anything I can. Like, if there's something in your past that I can touch, like if I was interviewing you, I'd be like, man, Frank Fonseray, one of the best dudes on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
You know that as well as I do, and things like that. So we can kind of relate to somebody, because I've interviewed a couple of people where their past I can't relate to, their music's not 100% up my alley, and I'm just like, man, we are struggling. but for the most part, man, I'm just a fan of music and metal, and so a lot of these people that come on the show, I mark out on, man.
Yeah. Now, I laughed at you. I was listening to, I believe it was your last podcast, and you were speaking about your son listening to the rap music and stuff.
Oh God.
You said about him listening to Metallica. So I was just like, I thought it was dope though, because I'm a person who loves all kinds of music. And my kids would always say, like, my son loves hip hop, of course, and they love R&B and all those kind of things like that. But I played everything, whether it was metal or just mainstream rock or R&B, whatever. I played everything, country music, classical music. They get in there and they just look at me. My son says today, he's just like, you made me hate dance hall and reggae music so much. But I was just like, I had friends who, the DJ Eclipse, he plays with MC Search. He DJs for them. So he always made the best dance hall tapes, and the bass was hitting so hard. I mean, man, I'm putting this in my car and I'm driving around and having the ball. But my son's just like, Dad, you killed me. He said, every time I hear it, he said, man, it's just like I'm traumatized. I'm just like, come on, man. It's just good music. But I laughed at what you were saying about your son. That was a really great story about him really, getting into. And I just think that people, just me personally, I'm not a genre snob. So I think people should listen to everything. It's just me though,
Yeah, no, well, I mean, that's a kind of an ongoing thing on the show with him, because he's really big into, like, what I honestly thought that these rappers were super underground.
Right.
Like, because there's the sound of the sound quality of the stuff wasn't Dre, Right. So I'm like, well, these guys he must be somehow listening to these underground dudes that nobody's ever heard of. Right. And then I look at he shows me the Spotify monthly listeners to these dudes. And we were joking around one day in a drive-through, and he was like, this dude's got, the NLE Choppa's got 20 million listeners.
Right.
And I'm like, oh shit. So I'm like, we'll pull up Metallica, and Metallica had like 17, and like I was like, we'll pull up Foo Fighters. I'm not even a big Foo Fighter. I'm grasping for straws at this point. Right. And he, so we're listening to all this stuff, man. And I don't want to be the dad that's just like, you can't listen to this because of this, and this. Right. Mm-hmm. But we have had talks. I'm like, Dad listens to a lot of stupid stuff, like, about dragons and got, fighting and, murder and all this other stuff. Right. But it's all fantasy. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you have to know that these dudes are all fantasy too, because if they did everything that they were talking about, they would be in jail forever.
Exactly.
And I was like, and also, I was like, that man, there was one. How graphic can we get on here? But
the graphic you want to get.
All right, there was basically like one dude on there talking about how he was like banging this chick until she bleeds, and I was like, girls don't like that, dude. Girls don't want to be, banged until they're, until they bleed and stuff. So I'm like, I want to let him listen to whatever he wants to, but I also want him to know that that's not real life.
Of course,
and. He's been putting, he's been doing a little auto tune rap here and there and stuff, and it's all right. But he's 16 too, so it's every once in a while he'll hit some subjects, and I'm like, can you just wait a couple of years before you start, rapping about drugs that I know you're not doing?
Indeed. No, I'm with you. I'm with you 100%.
But it's also funny because at 16 I wasn't writing songs about drugs and stuff, but I'm sure I've got a couple of, I'm going to murder somebody and bury them in a hole type songs, in the past. So I'd say it's, I never thought I would be this dad. I never thought I would be like, what are you listening to, son? This isn't real music. And because there's a few guys I've listened to that he listens to that I've actually listened to when he's not in the car.
Right. Gotcha.
Or like every once in a while, like one of those songs will get stuck in my head and I'll be like, I need to go back and listen to that one. Most part, it's not really that good, but I try to hit it with an open mind. But
it's music, man.
Yeah, it's tough though because you're like because you hear the stuff and it's just it just sounds cheap.
Yeah.
And I'm like just listen to this, listen to Doggy Style, listen to Chronic, listen to Dre, listen to Snoop, listen to anybody, and all that stuff would just sounded so huge and so big back then, and then this stuff is just like, oh, I found this beat on the internet. So.
Technology has changed so much stuff. It really has. It really has. Everybody can do whatever they need to do. And yes, it doesn't sound as good as you taking it, having it mixed and mastered by the certain individuals that make that sound. And, I used to have the biggest arguments with certain people. I was just like, yeah, man, a lot of us are doing stuff now at home. And I said, but there's a difference. That equipment that they have, the way they can take those sounds and make it bigger than life. I said, certain things you can't do. They can tell you that it can happen, but it just can't happen like that. I mean, that's just the honest truth. So now I agree with you, man. I agree with you.
At least we're on the same page with all that.
Yes,
yeah, man. It's strange being that parent, but we did. So I did buy him. Are you familiar with NLE Choppa?
Once again, I probably have not listened to a lot of his stuff, but even though my son's 29, so he listens to a lot of stuff. But even now, that stuff for him is even kind of crazy for him now. Yeah, but he knows all of it. He knows all of it. So yeah. But I know who you're talking about 100%. Yeah, he's big. He's definitely big. Yeah.
Well, he's going on tour, and my son sent me a thing. He's like, "Hey, I want can we go?" And I'm like, I don't know, man. But then, but his grades are slipping. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna buy 2 tickets right now. And if you have a certain grade average because this concert's like pretty much right at the end of the school year.
Awesome.
I'm like, you get your grades up to this, dad. White ass dad will take you to the NLE Choppa show. And
but here's the thing. I'm sorry for cutting you off on here.
Yeah.
You say white ass dad, but you're going to go in there and you're going to say to yourself, wow, it's going to be important because it's everywhere. Those guys are everywhere. And they're that big because they are everywhere.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to say that what you're saying about the schoolwork and things like that, I was the same way with my children. I'm like, hey, listen, this is what I expect out of you. If this is not happening, this is not happening. It's just what it is. My wife and I, we pulled no punches, man. We were real with our children. We loved them and we gave them as much as we could, but we also let them know like there's consequences to the things that you do. I always say choices, decisions, and consequences. And I said, it's just real with me, man. So now, man, I think it's love that you even would do that and even, be that open-minded. That's beautiful.
I told his mom that I was doing that, and she was just like, I can't believe you're even thinking about doing that. I took him to see Fozzy. I took him to see Kiss. I took him to see a couple, Non-Point and POD. I've taken, like some shows where I was getting in for free anyway. And I was like, I'll expose him to this. And I was like, because my dad, that's the one thing my dad let me do as a kid was really let me, where are you from?
I'm from South Carolina.
Okay. I was trying to figure out if there was more an Atlanta connection or not. But I mean, there was with Mojo. But like in high school, my dad on weeknights would allow me to go to Atlanta to see shows at the Masquerade.
Wow.
And come back, and then I would sleep in the car on the way home. I would get up for school the next day, like with with friends. Like we're all idiots and young and stuff. And looking back now, I'm like, why did my dad ever let me do that? And I asked him, I was like, why did you let me do it? And he's like, you were always a good kid. You got good grades and blah, blah, blah. So, but yeah, we would go and see, whatever shows during the week in Atlanta, 4-hour drive to to Nashville and back or whatever. And I just can't even think about that now, like being like letting my son go 4 hours away to see a concert and then come home and expect him to go to school the next day.
It's a different world, though. It's a different world about the things. I think that we are so much more overprotective. I did my best not to be so, because I wanted my children to really learn and experience things. Of course, we were, I still worry about them today, and they're all grown. I still worry about them. It's not going to stop. But I understood that. Let them live their lives. Let them live their lives and let them enjoy. And they're going to make mistakes. I mean, those are life lessons. They're life lessons. And you know that you have morals about you and how you raise your children. So once they get to an age where they can do things, then it's like, hey, you've given to them. And so you just pray that they continue to do those kind of things and think properly. And they're going to make mistakes, and just be there for them if you need to be. And but your dad letting you go do that, it was a different time. But he believed in you, and he believed in your friends. He's like, okay, as young men, I see a lot. My son, so say my son, right? I tell everybody he's everything I am and everything I wish I could have been. So I'm like, man, enjoy your life, man. I was like, let your paintbrush touch as many canvases as you want to. Enjoy your life. I was like, I didn't live that life, but I want you to live your life and enjoy yourself. So now, man, I get it, man. I get it. Yo, your pops is cool, man. Hey, shout out to pops, man.
I mean, honestly, man, the hardest part of being a dad is seeing your kids making the same mistakes you did.
Yes.
And you telling them about it, and they're not listening. And I'm just like, I just want to like stop and be like, stop what you're doing. I know what you're doing right now. Like, you need to not do that. You need to go this way instead of that way, and not let certain things get to you and things like that. And it's, but I mean, it's like, we'll have talks about the music industry, and he won't believe me. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me right now, but I'm like, of all people, I talk to musicians on a weekly basis, and he'll sit there and be like, oh, well, rock's dead. And I'm like, well, that doesn't have anything to do with the music business. Is the music business is the music business.
Yes, sir.
And then, but I'm still not cool dad sometimes. Especially with it. Well, that's not how it is anymore. And I'm like, it kind of is, but I'm like, hey, go do you.
I guarantee you he'll get it. Just like mine will come back. You remember when you said, yes, I do? Because just like you,
I can't wait for those days.
Yeah. I had friends that were promoters. And, they used to have shows where they were like, hey, get on this rap show. You do it. Love, beautiful. And then when they would have shows, they were like, I was like, hey, hook me up with the tickets. And they were like, yeah, come on down. So one of the shows, my kids were young. And it was Trick Daddy. It was No Limit.
Nice.
Was it No Limit? No, excuse me. It was Cash Money. So it was a lot of big artists there. So here I am. I'm on the stage, and I've got my kids on there. And I can remember yelling at Trick Daddy. And Trick Daddy was so. Listen, I don't drink, smoke. I'm straight edges. I'm that guy. So, man, Trick Daddy looked back at us because I think his mom is from Charleston, and that's where I'm originally from, Charleston. And so I was like, Chucktown. And he turned around and he looked at me. And he just pointed at me, and his eyes were, when I say he was gone, whatever he was on it. And my kids just looked at me, and they were like, that was at that moment, they were like, Dad, you're the greatest. They were just like, wow. But, I just wanted them to see a lot of things. And I never stopped them from listening to music, whatever they wanted to listen to. And even when, with my girls, I was like, hey, profanity, you know, the B word, this word, you know, N word, all that stuff, you know, I'm turning that down. That was my son. He's my boy. That's my guy. So we're riding, we're listening to everything. But he knew that he was always to be respectful, no matter what. We're listening to this. It's not real. This is just music. So I understand that. So just like you were telling your son, he'll get there. 100% he'll get there, and he'll respect you more than you will ever believe. He will. He'll come around. He's 16. Yeah. But he'll get there. He'll get there. So
I can't wait.
Last question.
All right.
Like with every guest I've had, man, I'm having so much fun with you guys. It's like I don't want it to end. I'm gonna be honest with you. This is cool. This is real cool. Thank you. So last question. What is the greatest thing about podcasting?
I mean, honestly, this right here, like this is the one thing that I did not expect the community of podcasters, you know, because, you know, you and I have never really, we've talked a little bit here and there on Facebook and whatnot, but I mean, from now on, you know, you're more than welcome to reach out and I'll say, hey, you know, something to you, or, hey, I listened to this, or I saw that. And just the other podcasters and the community is it's not cutthroat. You know, we're not all, none of us are here to make $1 million. I mean, we might be, but you know, if you see I had a guest and you say, hey man, you know, I'd like to have that guest on, do you know how to get in touch with them? I'm going to say yes or no. You know, I'm going to say, hey, you know, if it was a publicist, I can, you know, hook you up, or, you know, if it was through a friend, I might be able to throw you that way or something like that. That community of podcasters and the amount of friends that I've made through this was the unexpected, you know, consequences of all of this. Because, you know, honestly, I assumed I would do the show, throw it up, and like my personal friends would listen to it. And it's almost the opposite. It's like my personal friends don't listen to it at all. Like, and it's like, and I've made new friends that listen to the show, you know, like that listen each week, and you know, the other, like I say, I listen to their shows and things like that. So yeah, it's a very bizarre, like, I guess, side thing that happened with podcasting. This is what's made it kind of keep going too, was, you know, making those friends and, you know, doing conventions with them and stuff like that here and there. And, you know, and so, like, you know, there's a podcast expo in Nashville every year, and it's in roughly October. So, I mean, there was times where, you know, you would get to April, May, and you're like, oh, man, I'm kind of burnt out, you know, but if I just make it to September, then that'll be another year anniversary. And if I make it to September, then I make it to October, and that's the expo. And, you know, it's like all these kind of like milestones you kind of have to keep getting to, that just kind of keep you going, man. So yeah, it's definitely the community. And I've obviously a few friends I've made here and there. And actually a story, I've become pretty close with Rob Rivera from Knotpoint, the drummer. Really? And he used to come on weekly and do like a, hey, you know, a pick. We called it the pick from the kit. He would come on and he would actually just send me a voice memo and be like, hey, my pick of the week is, you know, Merciful Fate, blah, blah, blah. And this is why I like it. But, you know, a little 2-minute clip, and I would play the song. And so when he came through, one of the last times they came through, I took my son with me, and we did a quick, you know, interview in the car in my Jeep. And then we go inside and he's on stage, and my son looked at me and goes, wasn't that the guy that was just in our Jeep? You know, like he didn't put 2 and 2 together. And, you know, and then like, that's like, okay, well, I guess Dad is maybe kind of cool, you know? So, I mean, that was funny. He's like, wasn't that the guy that was just sitting with us in the car? But, yeah, good time.
That's awesome. You said the thing about the friends quickly. You said the thing about friends. I just know from dealing, I'll still send them stuff. It doesn't matter. But like, I tell them all, I was like, you guys liking, this is friends and family. I was like, you guys watching or listening to something I do is the bonus. I said, I don't expect it from you guys. And I really don't care. I said, because you guys just know me as what you know me as. You don't care about this. I said, but reaching out to those people that care about what you're doing, and they find value in what you're doing. And that's the thing. That's just exactly what you were saying, man. You see those individuals, and then, like, I've told my wife, and I was like, those are the people that I'm doing this for. I was like, I'm doing it because I enjoy it. But to have them come and appreciate what you're doing, it's like being on stage and somebody singing every word of your song. man, I appreciate that individual.
Oh,
Thank
yeah.
you. You took the time to go and learn and listen. I appreciate you, and I'm going to show love to you as much as I can. So those are the great things. But hey,
yeah,
man.
it's like we'll go and do like poker night or something with friends, and they'll be like, "You still doing that show?" Or something like that. I'm like, dude, we talk. I'm Facebook friends with you. I post about it all the time, man. But
they don't care.
They don't 100%. But there's somebody out in like Casper, Wyoming right now that can't wait for
yes,
Thursday.
exactly. And those are the people that I appreciate and show love to. Family's gonna love you because they're family. It's what it is. But I told them all. I was like, they were like, "Oh man, I got to get to where I got to watch this." I said, "No, you don't."
Right. That's what I tell people all the time. If I meet people or people at my day job, they'll ask about the show. I'm like, "Don't listen to it."
Right.
And then like, you're like, "Why don't you want me listening to it?" I was just like, "I just don't want you to listen to it." Like I don't want you coming into work on Friday and be like, "Oh man, I heard you say this, that, and the other thing." And I'm like, I don't want that. But it is funny. I was talking about this the other day with a friend of mine. Like you see your numbers of downloads, but there's a ton of people that like will never ever reach out to you ever. But they know everything about you. They listen every week. They're a big fan. Like, because I'm a big fan of a lot of shows that I'll never reach out to them just because, that's this. I don't know. I just don't know why. I just won't. And it's funny. Like, I always wonder like about those people. I'm like, why don't you guys reach out? Let's talk. Like, let's be buddies. But
good. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, that's pretty much it.
No, I was just like talking with Corey because I did a great interview with Corey. It's 2 hours and 18 minutes long, but it's a great interview. Frank and I had a long interview. Those are the two I'll put out this week right here. They were great. They were great. And just knowing them and just talking about things, and I pray that it's good for everybody else, but I just know that it was good for me to talk to them about the things that we've done and what we're doing and what they are doing. So, and just like this right here, I just think it's good and informational for people to say like, hey, this is Joshua Toomey. This is Talk Toomey. It's that guy, seriously, because just everything you're doing is just great. And so I'm looking at it and I'm paying attention, best believe it, as I'm growing because I'm loving what I'm doing. So I just thank you for all you're doing, man. And just love. I had to reach out to you. Corey was like, man, you got to reach out to people. He's like,
right.
He's like, I'm the super humble guy. I like when I'm around family members and stuff like that, I'm the greatest person in the world. That's me, But when I get out with other people, I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm more just paying attention, laughing and clowning or whatever like that. Corey was like, you got to reach out. He's like, you used to be the lead singer of Stuck Mojo. You got to reach out to some people. And he's like, embrace that. I was like, I hear you, man. I hear you.
No, man. I was like, when you hit me up about this, I was honored, man. That's cool. I'll tell you the story. When Frank joined Primer for that tour, I was aware of Stuck Mojo. I actually opened a couple of Stuck Mojo shows in the early 2000s with Bones in the band. I had a band, that 12-volt band that I said that every big band that came through, we opened for Stuck Mojo twice, but I didn't really know a lot about them. And so this is 2007. So this is like the height of LimeWire, Napster and all that stuff. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go on tour with Frank. And so I better learn some Stuck Mojo, like learn about them. So I basically just went on there and I clicked a bunch of songs and downloaded them to my it wasn't an iPod. It was like a little knockoff Zune or something, Zune. And so I'm in the car and the thing, and I'm asking about all these songs. And when I was listening back to Southern Born Killers today, I had That's When I Burn on there. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember that one. That's he go, and that's I remember it being like, oh, that's what that's with Lord Nelson and blah blah blah. So yeah, man, I've been a fan for a while, man. So it's good to so when you reach out, man, it's an honor to come on your show.
No, man, listen, it's this way also, believe me, man. I get chills with that when I hear things like that. If people ever say anything like that to me, I'm telling you, I'm kind of like, all right, man, I appreciate it. Thank you.
It's hard to take.
It's difficult for me to really take those kind of things. I mean, I'm appreciative, but I'm just like, hey, thank you very much, because I just want to have a good time and I want people to enjoy the music and have fun. So, the new project that I'm doing now with my man Matt Acevedo, Plastic Catastrophe, we might change the name, I don't know, but what we're doing is so great. This next album is going to be a really amazing one. We're taking our time with it. And I've just been talking to people and we just want to do it right, man. Just really do it right and get it out there. So anyway, I'm talking about me. I will talk about you.
Hey man, as we end this though, man, I was the third bass player at Primer 55 and I've milked that like crazy. You were at least on a Stuck Mojo record. So I mean, like, take it, man.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. No, I really have, man. And me reaching out to people, more people know about that than I would even have known. So I'm just like, wow, they're like, hey man, this. And I was like, oh wow. Oh, okay. All right. But it's love. But once again, thank you very, 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 very much. I'm honored, truly honored, man. And so, ladies and gentlemen, once again, this is Live and Loud with the Lord. Pause. Nelson, that is, with one of the greatest podcasters out there, Joshua Toomey from Talk Toomey. Yes, indeed. So once again, my brother, thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it, man.
Hey, man, anytime. Oh, hey, what's up?
She doesn't want to talk. Back to you, Doug.
We all want safety in our homes, but we've all removed the batteries from our smoke detectors from time to time because they're annoying and impossible to reset, right? Well, no more when you install the XSense XS01WT Smart Smoke Detector. This smoke detector works with an app on your phone to provide warnings of all potential issues. No more using a broom handle to reset it either. A simple push of a button on your phone app and it is reset. Go to https://bit.ly/CMSPN smoke and get your XSense XS01WT Smart Smoke Detector today.